Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Saturday, January 11th, 2025, and today's topic is going to be called Intrinsic Motivation, or maybe Art Motivation, but it'll be about intrinsic motivation in general and art motivation specifically. And before we begin, welcome back if you are returning, and welcome if you're new. I sketch and post every day, and I set timers to stay focused and build a daily sketching habit. And I'll start a 10-minute timer. If you want to use these videos as a sketching companion, feel free to do that. And I'm just going to sketch intrinsically and kind of talk about that, which some people may already know about it, or maybe it might be like kind of a new thing, or maybe not. Maybe you haven't given it that much thought, but I've given it a lot of thought, and it's just something that comes up. So for example, I'm going to start a blank page. I'm not going to use reference. I'm just going to draw intuitively from imagination, which I've made several videos about, and I'm going to basically make it fit the page or the camera. So I'm doing this because I was thinking about what I could make a video about and what I could draw. But the thing is, I can kind of draw anything, which was sort of the goal growing up. That was my thing. I thought that if I could just draw anything, then I'd be set. Like I'd have it made. But that's not true. That's the first thing. Although I'm thankful, and I mean, I worked at it, and I do enjoy it. I mean, it's helpful, and so yeah, I'm not saying like it's a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's just that there's more to it than that, is what I'm getting at, and which is what that intrinsic part is about. And so I'll do my best to stay focused. There's a lot more to this. In some ways, this is more of an advanced kind of topic, because from a beginner standpoint, in some ways, so there's this concept of like the beginner mind. And when you are a beginner, you literally have a beginner mind. So I love that feeling, because, and I like to kind of go back to that like feeling of the beginner mind. But yeah, when you're a beginner, specifically at art, since that's what my channel is about, then you literally have a beginner mind. And in some ways, that's a really great thing, because you don't have any preconceived notions. And that's what I'm practicing right now. I'm just practicing beginner mind, where, like I was saying, I was thinking about, well, what could I do a video about? I mean, for the past week, I've just been, like, I've done some acrylic painting. Yesterday I did these like big portraits, and yeah, I mean, it's fun. But the thing is, as far as my work is concerned, which is extrinsic, so it's the idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic. So extrinsic is stuff like making this video and posting it and stuff like that. So it's not black and white, these things. It kind of goes together, and that's kind of why I'm talking about it. It's because the way it works in the mind, it kind of flips back and forth. But I'll just stick to that 80-20 rule. Again, I just use it as a rule of thumb. I would like 80% of what I do to be intrinsic. If it's 50-50, it's almost a little too much extrinsic, if that makes sense. So one thing I'm also going to do as I talk about this is, because a lot of this is very conceptual and it's not that easy to kind of explain, I guess. I mean, the definition isn't that difficult. So intrinsic is basically, I made a video called sketching for the sake of it or something like that. So the idea is that, and that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm currently doing here, is just drawing or sketching and just use and mark making for the sake of it because it's fun or interesting. So with that said, this is a felt tip pen, medium point here, and I was organizing sort of my standard pens that I use, black pens. And so these are just different sizes, and I'll just mention them as I work with them. This is like a big fine point. But yeah, going back to the idea of the intrinsic aspect of this, one, I'm just having fun using like the tool itself and making marks. Part of it is I like to see if any of these pens are running out. I think sometimes I just like to sketch with a pen like this because it reminds me of an Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know if anyone, the young folks, know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, but I used to have one and I had fun just kind of playing with it. And basically this is what you just, well, you can't really make angled. You kind of, so maybe it was the first pixel art or something. You can kind of make angled, but it would be like a staircase. But basically it was just like a straight line, and then you could do this kind of thing. But yeah, the angled one would have to be, you have to use some tricks. So part of this is just, yeah, I'm just kind of making stuff up. I mean, I could look up stuff and I did in the previous videos, just kind of looked up stuff. I just get tired of looking up reference. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. It's just sometimes it feels extrinsic, so to speak. It feels like I'm trying to accomplish something. And so that's the other kind of definition, which is that intrinsic means you're not trying to accomplish anything. So it's close to playing, the idea of playing, where when you play, you're not really trying to accomplish something. You're just playing. And as soon as the idea of you want to accomplish something, it starts to become extrinsic, because the desire to accomplish something is extrinsic. Although feeling good because something is accomplished could be in a way intrinsic, and that's why it can get a little confusing. And I'm not an expert at this. I'm just talking about my own personal experience and opinions doing these kinds of things, and like with art specifically. A lot of times I know something when because I experienced it and know like what something is not, if that makes sense. So sometimes I know what intrinsic motivation is because I know what it isn't. And so, for example, there were times where extrinsic motivation just kind of took over, and it just wasn't fun, like it wasn't enjoyable. And even before I started this video, it was kind of like that, where I started thinking too much about, well, what kind of video should I make? So that's another kind of key term, is that idea of what you should do. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a balance kind of thing. And like I said, just for the sake of my own mind to remember, to make it easier for myself, I would rather just have it be intrinsically like 80%, I guess. Yeah, like most of the time. So I would say like right now, it's mostly like that. And part of that has to do with, so I'm going to switch pens here. Part of that has to do with, again, they're not separate. So I'm not saying that what I'm doing right now has no extrinsic qualities. So for example, I could make a video about anything, but why am I doing it about art or sketching or building like a daily sketching habit? And some of that is extrinsic, meaning I want people to get something from it. So that's extrinsic, because it's not just for me, but at the same time I'm doing something that like I'm choosing to do and that I like to do, which can get kind of tricky whenever basically you start thinking, okay, well, I'm drawing, for example, but I'm doing it for a job, and so that should be the best of both worlds. But then sometimes it's not like that. And I think it's important to be honest. And it might be like that for a while, and that's okay too. So it's a balancing thing, and it's not like either or. It depends, and it's something that you sort of think about probably on a daily basis would be good, just to kind of do what you're going to do for the day, and then think about it, like have some time to reflect. So even as I'm sketching, I'm aware that, for example, there's an element of, okay, well, this is pretty fun, I'm just kind of doing whatever, but an element of wanting to make it be a certain way. And again, that's not a bad thing. It's just, what is that balance? So basically, I'm talking about the difference between authenticity and popularity. Because I have found that a lot of times when you do something that's popular, or when you want something to be popular, or when you notice, just the whole idea of popularity is very extrinsic just by nature. Again, it's not to say that it's a bad thing. And what I mean is that, so I'm kind of talking, and so I want the video to be, and so this may be like an extrinsic thing, like you could just watch it, because sometimes that is a good reason to do something, just to create something that is enjoyable for others. But I'm speaking about this mainly because well, maybe other people could get value from it, but really, when you can draw whatever, then it's a question of, well, what do you want to draw? Like, what do you want to do with the skill that you have? So I'm just using different pens here. Part of it is, like I said, I just wanted to see if they're running out. So yeah, the term is chasing the algorithm. I just don't want to do that. I was going to say a minute ago that for a while I would just I never really hadn't that big of an audience, and mainly because I was kind of focused on just working on my career, as it were, like my art career, and I don't regret it, because I mean, I've had my work published and stuff like that, and that's like a whole nother kind of story, like how to do that as a career. First of all, it changes, the industry changes, and it's changing at an exponential rate, so that the way that it was in 10 years becomes 5 years, and then now it's sort of, it feels like every year is something different, and so that's a whole nother topic. And yeah, I'm at a point where I've already done it, so again, if somebody wants to sort of be in the industry and do that kind of work, when I was getting into all of that, the whole industry was different, and so in a way I just needed to be kind of like what these image generators are doing, where you just had to pump out that kind of stuff, and I didn't like it. So that's kind of a good example of what I mean by the extrinsic, because you just kind of became this machine, but you just did it. And I knew in myself I didn't like it, but that's kind of what I mean about, like, I didn't know, for example, where the industry was going to go, or like what the technology was for and stuff like that. But I knew just personally I didn't like certain things. And I've talked about that, and that's kind of what I mean. It's, you're not going to know like all the ins and outs of the industry and all the secrets and whatnot, and the direction of society and industry and stuff. But as an artist, it doesn't mean like you don't know anything. And so I was aware of how I felt about stuff. So I had already been going away from that, is what I'm saying. But then I also had my own sort of life circumstances come up, where I was working at jobs that were not art, like at restaurants and factories and other things. And I mean, it helped me to develop a work ethic, and yeah, and now I find it easier to just kind of get up and do these videos, because I had already been doing it for other things. And so I just figure, well, if I did it for that, like, why not do it for art? So there's an intrinsic element there too, where I think just doing work, I think, can be intrinsic, because I think people want to do work, want to actually be doing stuff. I think people want to be productive. I think it's sort of in our nature, but it just depends on, well, the extrinsic part, which is it worth it? Like, what do you get for doing that? What if other people are benefiting, but you're not benefiting, or that kind of thing? I'm going to set a 5-minute timer and kind of wrap this up, because this is kind of a big topic, obviously. It's more of just kind of a conversation I'm having with myself. But yeah, I mean, feel free to let me know your thoughts. But I think that ultimately, just showing up and sketching and stuff, it's partly extrinsic, partly intrinsic. It's important for me to do it. And I mean, there's a part of me that thinks, well, what is this for? But that's what I mean about the intrinsic thing. I don't know what it's for. It was something that just kind of, my hand just kind of came up with, and like my mind. And really, what I was really wanting to do was talk about this. However, I do enjoy sketching, and I do enjoy sharing artwork, and I do enjoy sort of maybe giving ideas or sharing what I know. I guess the point is that it's not always about how to draw certain things, although that's what I've been posting and mostly what I post, but like, it's not always. And I posted that this week. But at the same time, once you get past certain levels in like how you do your work, yeah, I mean, it's important to kind of think about the purpose of it and why and how you want to do it. First of all, I've never seen so many skillful artists. I mean, there's plenty of skillful artists out there. It's just an interesting time. Part of why people became skillful is the information is there, and also the competition, or like the drive, or the extrinsic motivation was there. But then because of AI images and other things, technology, I guess you could say, then things change, and that's separate. That's an industry kind of thing. That's I just call it industry. That's yeah, I don't know what else to call it. And yeah, it's kind of its own thing. But I'm not separate from it either, because I am posting on YouTube, and the stuff I want to publish and stuff, obviously I want there to be an audience for it, and I want to be able to do that, like create like my stories and my artwork. So that's what I wanted to talk about. There's about a minute left. But yeah, you could just kind of look at this as a sketch along or a demo, or maybe you kind of think about this sort of stuff. I don't always think about it. Sometimes it is really just about drawing something and how to do it, but sometimes it isn't. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. And I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine. And if you do like these videos, it may not be for everybody, but I have to do it in a way that feels authentic to me. But yeah, if you do like them, please support the channel. I do appreciate that. And until next time, keep on sketching.